Have you ever wondered if everything you believe in is actually leading you toward the truth, or if it's all been a grand deception? Imagine dedicating your entire life to a spiritual path, feeling the power, witnessing supernatural manifestations, and being absolutely certain that you are serving a higher purpose, only to discover, in the most shocking way possible, that you were serving something else entirely. This is the story of a woman who lived and breathed voodoo, revered as a powerful priestess, only to have her world shattered in an instant. One fateful day, she found herself standing at the threshold of life and death. A near-death experience, NDE, took her beyond this world, where the spirits she had served her entire life finally revealed their true nature. The moment of peace quickly twisted into a horrifying realization she had been deceived all along. But in her darkest hour, when all seemed lost, a light, unlike any other, broke through the darkness. A presence she had never known, yet instantly recognized, stood before her, Jesus Christ. And in that moment, everything changed. This is not just another story. This is a divine warning, a revelation that exposes the hidden battle for our souls. Many who believe they are walking in the light may actually be trapped in shadows. Could you be one of them? Stay until the end of this video, because what you are about to hear could change everything you think you know about spiritual truth. Before we begin, take a moment to support this message. Leave a like on this video so that more people can hear this powerful testimony. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Many people watch but forget to subscribe, and you don't want to miss content that can transform your faith. And tell us in the comments, from which country are you watching? It's amazing to see how far this message is reaching around the world. Now let's dive into a story that will shake you to your core. From the earliest days of her childhood, she had been drawn to the mystical world of spirits and unseen forces. Raised in a community where voodoo was not merely a tradition, but a way of life, she witnessed the power of the unseen firsthand. Elders spoke of the lower, powerful spiritual entities that governed various aspects of existence. As she grew, so did her fascination. She was not just an observer. She was chosen. The path of a mambo, a voodoo priestess, was not something she stumbled upon. It was a calling. She spent years in rigorous study, learning the intricate rituals, the sacred chants, the precise way to offer sacrifices. Each ceremony reinforced her belief that she was walking in divine truth, serving forces far beyond human comprehension. She saw herself as a healer, a guide, and an instrument of the spirits. The power she wielded was real, undeniable, and she embraced it without question. The community revered her. She was sought after for spiritual guidance, healing, and protection. People came to her in times of despair, looking for hope, answers, and divine intervention. She performed rituals to bring blessings, ward off curses, and invoke the lower for prosperity and health. She was the bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds, her very presence commanding respect and fear. There were nights when the spirits manifested so intensely that even the strongest skeptics could no longer doubt. Possessions, healings, visions, she had seen it all. And in those moments, she was certain that she was serving something divine, something powerful. She had no reason to question her path. After all, the spirits responded, didn't they? Yet, in the depths of her soul, there were whispers of unease she dared not acknowledge. Strange occurrences, moments where the spirits she called upon did not behave as expected. There were times when she saw darkness flicker behind their supposed blessings, but she quickly silenced those doubts. Faith, after all, was unwavering. If there were moments of doubt, it was simply a test. That's what she told herself. She had seen spirits heal people. She had seen the possessed break free. The power was real. And if it was real, how could it be wrong? Her reputation grew, and with it, her authority. She trained disciples, taught them the ways of voodoo, and passed down the sacred knowledge that had been entrusted to her. She became known as a powerful mambo, one whose rituals always bore fruit, one whose connection to the lower was undeniable. People believed in her. They came with their troubles, their illnesses, their curses, and she delivered them, or so she thought. What she could not see, what she refused to see, was the deeper cost of her devotion. But the day would come when the veil would be torn away, a day unlike any other. A day that would force her to confront the truth behind the spirit she served, a day that would lead her to the very edge of death and beyond. Her days followed a sacred rhythm. Rising before dawn, she prepared offerings, lit candles, and invoked the spirits in whispered prayers. Each morning, she purified herself, washing away the residue of the night's encounters with the unseen. As a Mambo, she knew the weight of her responsibilities. The spirits never slept, and neither did the demands of those who sought her. She had long accepted that her life was no longer her own. She was a vessel, a chosen intermediary between the living and the spirit world. On the day that everything changed, she felt an unshakable heaviness in her chest. It was unlike anything she had felt before. There had been signs, subtle yet persistent, a glass of water shattering on its own, a candle's flame twisting unnaturally despite the absence of wind, a raven perched outside her window, unmoving, watching. The air was thick with something she could not name. But she was no stranger to omens, and she dismissed them with a quiet resolve. She had rituals to perform, people to guide, spirits to summon. As the day unfolded, the unease grew stronger. The moment arrived when she was conducting a ceremony, an important one. A man had come to her, desperate. His family was cursed, plagued by misfortune and sickness. She had seen it before countless times. With confidence, she prepared the altar, laid out the symbols, and called upon the lower for assistance. The air in the room grew dense. The flickering candlelight seemed to distort the very space around them. Then it happened. A violent force struck her body, unseen but undeniable. Her breath caught in her throat. A sharp pain shot through her chest. She stumbled backward, clutching at her heart as a wave of dizziness overtook her. The world around her blurred, voices becoming distant echoes. She tried to stand, to steady herself, but the floor beneath her felt as though it was dissolving into nothingness. A gasp escaped her lips as her legs gave out. The last thing she saw before her vision faded was the terrified faces of those around her. And then, silence. She was floating, weightless. The room, her body, the people, everything was below her now. She could see herself lying motionless on the floor, eyes wide open but empty. The realization struck like lightning. She was outside of herself. The cries of those around her reached her ears, but they were muffled, distant. She tried to move, to speak, but she had no voice, no control. A force unseen was pulling her upward. The material world, the world she had known and mastered, was slipping away. The sensation was neither warm nor cold. It was not painful, yet it was deeply unsettling. A doorway, an opening of some kind, appeared before her, glowing with an eerie luminescence. The pull intensified. The spiritual realm she had dedicated her life to was now fully unveiling itself. But what lay beyond that opening? Would she meet the lower, the spirits she had served so faithfully? Was this the passage to divine enlightenment, or had she been deceived all along? She drifted forward, the doorway drawing closer. The truth she was about to learn would change everything. She drifted through the ethereal void, her consciousness expanding beyond the confines of her former body. The passage before her pulsed with an otherworldly glow, shifting between golden brilliance and an eerie, shadowy haze. At first, there was peace, an overwhelming sense of calm, as if all the burdens of her mortal existence had dissolved. She felt lighter, freer than she had ever been. And then they came. Figures emerged from the glowing expanse, familiar yet distant. Spirits she had called upon in her rituals, entities she had honored and served with unwavering devotion. They surrounded her, their forms fluid, shifting between beauty and something more sinister. They spoke to her, not in words but in thoughts, emotions, whispers that curled around her mind like smoke. "You have done well," they murmured. "You have been faithful. Now you will see the full truth." Her soul trembled with anticipation. Was this the moment of enlightenment, the final revelation that every voodoo priestess longed for? She reached out, eager for understanding, but as she did, something shifted. The warmth around her flickered, and for the first time she sensed something off. A hidden edge to their voices, an undercurrent of something dark lurking beneath the surface. One of the spirits stepped forward, one she had called upon countless times in her earthly rituals. His face was one she had envisioned in her trances, his power one she had summoned in moments of need. But as she gazed into his eyes, something terrible happened. The illusion shattered. The beautiful, radiant being before her twisted, contorting into something grotesque. His face became a mask of rage, his once soothing voice now a guttural snarl. The other spirits followed, their forms unraveling, revealing monstrous shapes hidden beneath their divine facades. These were not benevolent guides. These were not the sacred Loa. They were deceivers. The truth crashed down upon her with an unbearable weight. The spirits she had served, the ones she had trusted, were not who they claimed to be. They had played her, used her, fed off her devotion. The rituals, the sacrifices, the prayers, it had all been for them, and now they were claiming their due. Foolish one, the twisted entity sneered. You never truly knew us. You only knew what we allowed you to see. She recoiled, horror seizing her soul. Had she truly spent her entire life serving forces of darkness? The realization was suffocating. She had believed herself a healer, a servant of something divine, and yet she had unknowingly bound herself to something far more sinister. The darkness around her thickened, coiling like smoke, suffocating, constricting. The spirits once alluring presence became oppressive, crushing her under the weight of their deception. They no longer whispered sweet reassurances. Now they laughed, a cruel, mocking laughter that echoed through the endless void. Panic surged through her. She tried to pull away, to fight, but she was powerless. This was their domain, and she was at their mercy. The glowing passage she had once found so inviting now felt like a trap, a gateway to something much worse. She screamed, but there was no sound. She fought, but there was nothing to grasp onto. The truth was undeniable now. She had been deceived, and there was no way out, or so she thought. Because in that moment, when the darkness threatened to consume her entirely, a light unlike anything she had ever known pierced through the void. It was not like the eerie glow of the spirits. It was not a shifting, deceiving illumination. It was pure, blinding, absolute. And then she heard his voice. I am the way, the truth, and the life. The darkness recoiled. The spirits shrieked. And for the first time in her existence, she felt something she had never truly known. Hope. A blinding radiance engulfed her, cutting through the suffocating darkness like a sword of divine fire. It was unlike anything she had ever experienced. This was not the flickering glow of candles in a ritual, nor the deceptive shimmer of the spirits she had served. This light was absolute, pure, and terrifying in its intensity. It did not merely illuminate, it exposed. Every shadow, every deception, every hidden truth lay bare before it. The monstrous entities that had surrounded her shrieked in agony, their forms twisting, writhing as they recoiled. The power of this presence was something they could not withstand. They tried to hold on to her, their claws sinking into the remnants of the spiritual ties she had forged with them through years of devotion. But the light burned through their grip, unraveling the chains that bound her soul to them. Then he stepped forward. She could not see him fully, for his brilliance was beyond comprehension. But she knew. Every fiber of her being recognized him, even though she had never called upon him before. She had never worshipped him, never sought him, never even believed in him. And yet in this moment, there was no denying who he was. Jesus Christ. The darkness trembled at his presence. The spirits that had once claimed to be her guides now cowered like cornered beasts. Their power, so overwhelming before, had been reduced to nothing in the face of his authority. He spoke, but not in anger. His voice was neither harsh nor condemning. Instead, it carried a truth so profound that it shattered everything she had believed in a single instant. "You have been deceived." The words struck like lightning, and for the first time, she saw it all clearly. Every ritual, every prayer, every sacrifice, it had all been a lie. The spirits had never been her allies. They had never served the divine. They had used her, manipulated her, ensnared her in a web of deception so intricate that she had mistaken their darkness for light. Tears welled in her soul, tears of horror, of betrayal, of overwhelming regret. How could she have been so blind? How could she have given her life to a path that led only to darkness? Jesus spoke again, his voice filled with a love that was unlike anything she had ever known. It was not a love that demanded offerings, not a love that required ceremonies or blood sacrifices. It was freely given. It had always been there. "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." John 14:6. A flood of understanding crashed over her. This was truth, not the half-truths she had clung to, not the illusions she had been fed. This was the unshakable, eternal, undeniable truth, and for the first time she saw herself as she truly was, lost, broken, deceived, and in desperate need of salvation. A choice lay before her. The spirits were still there, though diminished, waiting in the shadows. They had lost their power over her, but they were not gone. If she turned back to them, they would reclaim her. They would reinforce their hold, and she would return to their grasp, bound even tighter than before. But Jesus was offering her something different, a way out, a new life. Her heart pounded with a fear unlike any she had ever known. Leaving Voodoo meant losing everything, her identity, her reputation, her entire world. The spirits would not let her go without a fight. Would she have the strength to let go? And then, for the first time in her existence, she did something she had never done before. She called upon his name. "Jesus, save me!" The moment the words left her soul, the heavens themselves seemed to tremble. The darkness screamed in rage. The spirits convulsed and shrank away, retreating into the void. And then, everything changed. The light surged forward, consuming everything, pulling her in. A warmth unlike any she had ever known embraced her. The fear, the pain, the deception, it all melted away. And then she woke up. Gasping for breath, her body convulsed as she re-entered the physical world. She was back, but she would never be the same. She jolted awake, her lungs gasping for air, as if she had been submerged in deep water and had just broken through the surface. But she was not the same. The moment her soul snapped back into her body, a surge of overwhelming emotions flooded her. Terror, awe, confusion, but most of all, an unshakable certainty that she had encountered the ultimate truth. Yet, even as her consciousness fully returned, she was not alone. The shadows that had once disguised themselves as divine spirits were still there. Though the blinding light of Christ had burned away much of their illusion, they had not disappeared. They lurked at the edges of her vision, no longer attempting to deceive her with false gentleness. Now, their true nature was revealed: rage, hatred, and an unspeakable hunger to reclaim what they had lost. "You belong to us," they hissed. "You have always belonged to us." A paralyzing force gripped her chest. The air grew thick, heavy, suffocating. It felt as though unseen hands were clawing at her, trying to drag her back into the abyss. Fear clawed at her mind. Had she been a fool to think she could escape? But then the memory of his voice echoed through her soul. "I am the way, the truth, and the life." And she realized they were lying. They no longer had power over her. They had been exposed. Their dominion was built on deception, and now that the veil had been lifted, all they had left was fear tactics. But she did not have to be afraid anymore. With every ounce of strength left in her, she forced herself to speak the name of Jesus once more. "Jesus Christ, I belong to you." The effect was immediate. The darkness recoiled violently. The unseen force that had been gripping her shattered like fragile glass. The presence of the spirits twisted, convulsing in agony, as if her words had struck them with an unbearable force. They screamed, but not with human voices, with something far more primal, an unnatural wail of defeat. Light flooded the room, though no physical source could be seen. It was him. The same presence that had pulled her from the deception of the spirits now surrounded her in warmth and undeniable authority. She had never known peace before this moment, not true peace. But now she felt it for the first time. The spirits tried one last time. "They will never believe you," they whispered. "You will lose everything." And that was when she understood. This was the cost of truth. She had spent years building her life as a voodoo priestess. People revered her, trusted her, sought her wisdom. To turn away from voodoo meant losing not only her position, but her entire identity. The spirits knew this. They were counting on this fear to keep her silent. But something inside her had changed forever. She could not go back, not after what she had seen. "Jesus," she whispered, "I choose you." The final bond snapped. The spirits screamed one last time before vanishing into the void. The weight lifted, the air became clear, the room was silent, and for the first time in her life she was free. Tears streamed down her face as the reality of what had just happened sank in. She had barely survived an encounter with the very forces she had served for years, but Jesus had saved her, not because she had earned it, not because she had prayed to him before, but because his mercy was greater than her past. She was alive, and she had been given a second chance. But now, the hardest battle of all would begin. She had to walk away. She had to face the world, face her community, face the people who had once revered her, and tell them the truth. Would they believe her? Would they listen? Or would they see her as a traitor, someone who had lost their mind? She didn't know, but for the first time she wasn't afraid, because she was no longer walking in darkness. She was walking in the light. The morning light streamed through the window, casting a warm glow on the walls of her small home. But something felt different. Everything felt different. It was as if the entire world had shifted overnight, as if she had been blind all her life and had only now begun to see. She sat in silence, gripping the edge of the wooden table where she had once prepared countless offerings to the spirits. The very space that had once been a sanctuary for her rituals now felt suffocating. The symbols, the statues, the sacred objects, all of it reeked of deception. She had spent years believing she was working for a higher purpose, guiding people, healing them, offering them a path to power and protection. But it had all been a lie. The spirits she had served were never benevolent. They had only used her. And now she had to make a choice. She stood up and, with trembling hands, began removing everything. The altars, the charms, the ceremonial tools. Everything had to go. The weight of every object felt unbearable now that she knew the truth. Her entire past, her entire identity was wrapped up in these items. And yet, none of it could stay. Piece by piece, she carried it all outside. Statues of the lower, sacred bowls, ritual knives, things she had once revered, things she had sworn to protect, were now nothing more than shackles she was breaking free from. Her hands shook as she set them on fire. The flames roared to life, consuming everything she had once held sacred. The smoke twisted into the sky, and for a brief moment she thought she could hear the echoes of the spirit's anger. But she did not waver. She would never serve them again. Her decision had been made. But as she watched her past burn away, a chilling thought entered her mind. What will they say? What will they do to me? Word spread quickly. The woman once known as a powerful Mambo, the woman who had commanded the spirits with authority, had abandoned the path. She had turned her back on everything, and worse, she was now speaking against the very forces she once served. At first people did not believe it. It had to be a mistake. Maybe she had gone mad. Maybe she had been cursed. Maybe one of the spirits had punished her. But as the truth settled in, anger followed. The very people who had once sought her wisdom now turned on her. Some accused her of betraying the traditions of her ancestors. Others whispered that she had been possessed by an even darker spirit. No one wanted to hear the truth. Threats came quickly. warnings to stop speaking, warnings that she would regret abandoning the spirits. Some former disciples even pleaded with her to reconsider. "You are making a mistake," they said. "You will lose everything." But she had already lost everything. She had already stood at the brink of eternity and seen the truth. Nothing they said could shake her. Still, it hurt. People she had known her entire life, people she had helped, healed, protected, now wanted nothing to do with her. She had been their leader, their guide, and now she was their enemy. But she had made her choice. She had chosen Jesus Christ. For weeks, she kept to herself, unsure of what to do next. The silence of her home felt foreign now that the spirits were no longer present. She had spent years listening for their whispers, performing ceremonies to gain their favor. Now she was met with nothing but stillness, yet for the first time she felt peace. And then something unexpected happened. A woman knocked at her door, a woman she had once helped in a ritual. She looked terrified, her hands shaking, her voice barely above a whisper. "Something is wrong," the woman said. "They won't leave me alone." At that moment, she understood. She was not alone. There were others who had walked the same path, others who had trusted the spirits, others who were trapped in the same deception she had been in, and they were searching for a way out. This was why Jesus had saved her, not just for herself, but for them. From that moment on, she knew what she had to do. She began speaking, at first only to those who came to her in secret, people too afraid to admit they were questioning the spirits. She told them the truth, not just about the deception, but about the one who had set her free. She told them about Jesus Christ. Some listened, some rejected her outright, some wept, realizing that they too had been serving something they never truly understood. But the more she spoke, the greater the resistance grew. The Voodoo community did not take kindly to her words. Priests and priestesses denounced her, calling her dangerous. Some accused her of spreading lies, others claimed she was trying to destroy their way of life. The spirits would punish her, they warned. She did not care. She had already been to the edge of death. She had already seen the truth. Nothing in this world, no threat, no rejection, no loss, could compare to the eternal cost of deception. She knew that her journey would not be easy, that she would always be seen as a traitor, that she would likely never regain the life she once had. But none of it mattered, because she had gained something far greater. She had gained the truth. She had gained salvation. And now she would spend the rest of her life bringing that truth to others, no matter the cost. She had been a priestess of the spirits. Now she was a servant of Christ, and she would never turn back. She had walked through fire. She had seen the face of deception, lived within its grasp, and barely escaped with her soul intact. The spirits she once revered had shown their true nature, and in their betrayal, she had found the greatest truth of all, that there is only one way, only one truth, only one life, and his name is Jesus Christ. The path forward was not easy. She had lost everything, her reputation, her community, even those she once called family. Yet, in that loss, she had gained something eternal. No longer enslaved to the shadows, she now walked in the light with a new mission: to expose the lies, to open blinded eyes, and to bring others to the same saving grace that had rescued her from the abyss. And now she turns to you. Could you also be trapped in a deception without realizing it? This is not just her story. It is a warning, a call to wake up. How many people believe they are serving truth when in reality they are walking deeper into darkness? The enemy is cunning. His greatest weapon is illusion. He does not come as a monster, but as something desirable, something that feels real, something that appears to answer your prayers. But what if it's all a lie? Right now you have a choice. Will you continue to follow what you have always known, even if it might be false? Or will you seek the one who is the true light, the only path to salvation? If this story has spoken to you, if you feel even the slightest doubt about the path you are on, don't ignore it. Seek the truth while there is still time. And before you go, I want to hear from you. Comment below. Where are you watching from? Have you ever questioned a spiritual belief before? If you believe this message is important, hit the like button. This helps spread the truth to more people. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to this channel. Many watch but forget to subscribe, and you don't want to miss out on more powerful revelations like this. Jesus is the only way. Are you ready to follow him?